What's up, everyone? If you do not know who I am, my name is Dylan Haugen, and I am a 5'10", 16-year-old dunker and content creator. And today, guys, I'm just starting my podcast. I've done YouTube for a long time now. I've experimented with almost all social media, and I've just recently loved talking to dunkers and just about dunking and just trying to help everyone achieve their goals in dunking. And so that is the point of this podcast. We're going to be interviewing dunkers, pro dunkers, just everyone who loves to train in general, and we're just going to be hopefully spreading a bunch of information to you guys and helping you on your own journeys. But today, just to start it off, since this is just mostly like a test podcast, I'm going to talk about my journey from not being able to dunk at all to getting my first dunk as a 5'8", 13-year-old. Um, so I'd say my journey really started, or before my journey started, I did not play basketball a lot. I didn't really like basketball a lot. Growing up, I played soccer and just a bunch of other random sports, baseball, all that. And at some point, it was literally like I can remember the day I was just on YouTube and I watched a video called like Michael Jordan's top 50 plays of all time or something like that. Literally just one video, one basketball video, probably the first basketball video I've ever truly watched. And from that moment on, I just fell in love with dunking. I feel like a lot of dunkers say that Michael Jordan kind of got them into it, and I am like part of the younger generation, but even he got to me. So after watching that video, I literally remember going outside, and we had just recently got a basketball rim, and I put it all the way down to like 7.5, and I was dunking with a ball that was about, just small ball, and I was just messing around trying to do the stuff that I saw him do. Um, and this kind of turned into a normal thing. I would just go outside all the time and just dunk with a small ball on a small rim, and I just had fun with it. Like I didn't really care about like being the best. I didn't even know that pro dunkers were a thing. Um, but I was just like, oh, I want to be like Michael Jordan, mess around. And eventually, I was playing basketball at the time that I started messing around on low rims. It was in like probably fourth grade, so I was like 11, 12 years old. Probably 11 years old, I'd say. And I was just literally just having fun and then going and playing basketball. And I was terrible at basketball, for the record. Like, I remember in my fourth grade season, my season high for points was 8 points. And that was like, I was so excited when I got over like 2 points. So I was not good at basketball at all. Um, but then between fourth grade and fifth grade, the entire summer basically, I literally just low rimmed the entire time. I had a ton of fun, and I got to the point where I could do some decent stuff on 7.5. Nothing like I can do today, obviously, but I was doing like, so between the legs with a small ball. But everything was just super awkward. Didn't look good, but I was just happy and just having fun with it. And I still had no idea that pro dunkers existed, by the way. Um, so in fifth grade, I went from being like, bottom five on the team, not good at all, to probably being the best player on my fifth grade team. Not that it matters, but that was just kind of like my improvement. And the reason that I even say that is because I credit all of that improvement literally just to lower rim dunking. Like there was not a single other thing that I really did. Like I dribbled here and there, I shot here and there, but the thing that I did the most was literally dunk on 7.5. And I went from being terrible to actually being like a decent fifth grader. So yeah, I didn't stop. I just kept low rimming, and once I got to sixth grade, um, I think I was pretty close to touching during my sixth grade season. I made a different team, like I made a better team, so I was not as good, and I was actually pretty terrible on that team. It was kind of like my fourth grade year, not a ton of scoring or anything, but I just had fun. And the one thing that I could always rely on, that if I didn't have a good practice, if I didn't have a good game, I could always go home and low rim, and it would be a ton of fun. So yeah, I just kept doing that through sixth grade, and by the end of sixth grade, I remember summer of sixth grade, going into seventh grade, I touched the backboard for the first time, and I was like super hyped, because I was just touching the net before, which basically everyone could do, but then I made like this jump that like basically no one else in my grade could do at the time, which was touch the padding of the backboard. So, you know, that was big for me. And then going into seventh grade, I remember tryouts. I was like touching the backboard on layups, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And during my seventh grade season, I just had a huge, I probably just started going through puberty or something, but I had a huge, athleticism change. I just changed a lot during that year, and I went from being kind of awkward with all my dunks to actually being able to do windmills in between the legs and all that cool stuff on still on 7.5, so super low rim, but it didn't look like I was like doing the motion on the ground or anything. So that's when I kind of started to get into pro dunking too. Um, During that time, I was doing a lot on YouTube. I started posting like some lower rim dunk videos, and at the time, I didn't know a single other dunker, and I kind of thought like, oh, people are gonna think this is dumb, but I didn't really care because it was just something that I enjoyed doing, and I also had a very big passion in video creating, and yeah, that's kind of how I started posting my dunk journey. Is just posting like random videos. Like I'd post videos on trampolines, but mostly on 7.5. And then somewhere in my seventh grade year, I was always the type of kid, like during our practices, if there was any minute that we were not doing something, like if there was a water break, I would like run, get water, come back, and then just start jumping. And during my seventh grade year, after touching the backboard, the next thing is the rim. And I would just try to touch the rim every single day, every single practice. And then eventually, like I literally remember um, like what was going through my head, what court we were on, what rim we were on. Like I still go to the gym sometimes, and so we were playing practice, or we were at practice, and I literally just we're on a water break, went up for the rim, touched it. I felt myself touch the rim, and I don't think a single other person saw. Maybe like one other person, and my dad was an assistant coach for my seventh grade team at the time. So I was like, Dad, watch this, and I tried to do it again, and I didn't get it consistently after that for like probably 2 weeks, which I was like, oh, why can't? One thing looking back that I think is hilarious is that, for example, touching the rim, like I didn't get consistent touching the rim until 2 3 weeks after I touched it for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, like why can't I do this today? But now there's days now where I'm like, if I can get a dunk consistent in 2 weeks, that is otherworldly. Like that is insane. Like I'm going for between the legs now. I've hit between the legs like six, seven, maybe 8 times, and I cannot do it every single day. And me back then was like, oh my gosh, it took 2 weeks to get this consistent, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just such a big difference. So yeah, I mean, somewhere between seventh and eighth grade is when I really started to get into jumping a lot. Like I was jumping before, I was probably jumping like 20, 30 minutes a day. During the summer of seventh and eighth grade, I was jumping literally every single day for 1 hour minimum up to like 4 hours. And a lot of the time was spent on low rims, but during that time, I also got into doing a lot more high rim stuff, like just dunk attempts on 10 feet, even if I wasn't close at all. Um, Shortly after I touched the rim for the first time, I started talking to Jordan Kilgannon, and this brought a whole nother level into my love for dunking, because talking to someone like him, who was obviously, if you guys don't know who that is, probably the greatest dunker of all time, and just seeing his passion through like him helping me was just like beyond helpful. Like I'm beyond thankful for what Jordan has done throughout my dunk career. We don't talk a ton now, but like when I was getting started, he was the most helpful person like ever. He coached me through everything, and it just helped me a ton. So um, props to Jordan for that. But yeah, it was like he showed me some things about my approach that I knew what good jump technique looked like, but I didn't necessarily just apply it all the time. And I had decent technique, but I just did a few things incorrectly. And as soon as I started applying what he said, like I was dunking on 9.6 pretty consistently. Like I still remember, like he sent me, basically like a screenshot of my path, and then he like corrected it with a different line, and I used that screenshot like countless times back then, and it helped me go from barely dunking on 9.6 to dunking on 9.6 pretty consistently. Um, like I said, between fourth and sixth, seventh grade, I really had no idea that pro dunking was a thing. I didn't really care. I was just in it for basketball, and I just went dunking games. Um, but once I saw Jordan Kilgannon, like I scrolled through his Instagram and I saw all the like creative dunks that he was doing, that made me just like fall in love with dunking. And I still love basketball. Like I still play basketball a lot, and I love basketball, and I still want to dunk in games. But like just the art of dunking was just so mesmerizing to me, and I learned so much just from looking at his account. So, um, yeah, I mean, after I started seeing his dunks, I started doing the same things on 7.5, 8 feet, and I got to a point where like I could just see a dunk and then go do it. Obviously, not as cleanly or as good as someone like Kilgannon, but like, well, building up to like today, like literally any single dunk that I see, I can basically like see it and go outside to the front and just go do it. Like it's not that hard for me anymore. And I think the main reason for that is because of all that work I did when I was 12, 13 years old, just recreating every single hard dunk that I saw. So yeah, I mean, I learned a ton of dunks. I was doing windmills on like 8, maybe even 9 feet at that time. I was doing like I did a 360 between the legs on 7.5. I'm pretty sure. I just started. I did a lost and found. Like I did a ton of cool dunks with varying ball sizes on like 7.5, 8 feet, and it was literally just from watching Jordan and fall in love with what he was doing. After that, I just randomly again like a lot of my big progress like spurts have just been really random. Like it's just been or in that time. Now it's very predictable. My training is pretty predictable on whether I'm going to improve or not. But back then, it was just like, oh, I went through a bit more puberty and now I can jump higher. So it was like, I remember I went from just like grabbing the rim barely to some pretty close dunk attempts because I had done so much low rim work that my lobs were just so on point and I was getting close every single time that I tried. And I remember one specific day I was outside on my home court and I just like missed like 20 dunks and they were all super close. And once I started having those days where I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so close to dunking, it was like I didn't want to low rim anymore. Like I loved low rimming, but I was like, I have to save my energy so that I can dunk on 10 feet. And around that time, I was 13 years old, 5'8", and so I made a goal for myself to dunk before I turned 14 years old. So that was probably around July, June, and I turned 14 in October. So yeah, there was this one camp that I went to that was at a middle school, and it was just a normal camp, But before the camp, back in the day, during this time, I didn't have to warm up, so I'd literally just show up to that camp like 10 minutes early and just try to dunk the whole time. Force one of my friends to record me, and I back rimmed a lot of dunks that on those times because I didn't really get to dunk inside on like wood courts a lot, and so when I did get to, my jumps were a lot different. But I just never had enough time. I think I honestly could have got one. Not no, I don't think I could. I definitely could have got a dunk way earlier if I would have just had more time at an indoor gym with wood courts because that's also very important to me. Um, but then yeah, I mean I just kept trying all the time, and one day I remember at this point it was like all my family, all my friends knew that I really liked dunking and it was like very important to me. And so, they were kind of waiting for me to hit one, but like they also had a little bit of doubt, I feel like. So, I'd always talk to my dad and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to hit a dunk today." And then I'd go and I'd come back and I'd be like, "Well, that was close." But I remember this one day I went to a gym called The Lab. If you watch my videos, it's a gym with like the red court. Um, and I told my dad before going there, I was like, I'm gonna hit a dunk today. And he's like, yeah, like sure you are. I'm sure he did not think I was gonna hit one that day. But I went there and I was jumping, and I was really just not close, to be honest with you. I mean, I was close, but not like oh my gosh, how are these not going in type of close. But then this guy um, named Adam Anderson, he randomly, I saw him dunking on the other side, and he just walked up to me and he was like, "Hey, bro, do you want me to throw you some lobs?" And if I cannot explain how much that meant to me to have someone come and like ask to help me, bro, that just meant the world. And he started throwing me lobs. His lobs were so perfect. Um, like 4 or 5 attempts in, I just make my first dunk. And I mean, I didn't get too excited. I got really excited, but I like kind of kept it in because I didn't want to like embarrass myself. But yeah, I still talk to Adam today. And the other day, I actually saw him not the other day, like a couple months ago, I saw him at the gym, and I actually hit a double up East Bay over him. If you don't know what that is, it's like holding the ball on top of his head, and I jumped over him and did it between the legs. So it was a really cool kind of full circle moment there. But basically, like yeah, guys, if you're at a gym and you see someone trying to dunk and they are close, asking to throw them lobs just like right in front of the rim just so they can tip it in, bro, that could literally make someone's day. And it made my year because I hit my first dunk in September of 2021, I believe. Right before, like a month before I was going to turn 14. So I was 5'8", 13 years old. And I got my first dunk. Um, I will say after that, it got a lot harder to make progress. I, went and I hit a couple more dunks here and there. Just a lot of tip-ins the rest of the year. But I was not, and then I got hurt. I got hurt. I hurt my knee. I don't even remember what I did, to be honest, but it was something involving my MCL, PCL, and meniscus or something like that. But that's a topic for another day. I'll definitely go over that injury. Um, and yeah, so the next podcast that I'll most likely do is going from my first dunk to my first windmill, which was just, was it over it? I think it was a year and a couple months later, something like that. So yeah, I mean, if you guys enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe, like, leave a review, whatever, on whatever podcast platform this is. I'm still trying to figure this out. So if you guys have any tips, let me know. I'm going to do my best to get this out everywhere. I have no clue how to do it, so we're just going to figure it out. So bear with me as we do this. But yeah, I mean, if you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave some requests in the comments. If you're on YouTube, leave a review. If you're on Spotify, Apple. And yeah, just thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out.